So there are several new things I want to show you about Python. One of them has to do with random numbers. Now, random numbers are a huge part of not only things like games, but even things like data programs, statistics. So random number generation is an important aspect of any computer language. So let me show you how to do some basic stuff in Python. In particular, we want to know how to generate a random integer given a range. So if I ask you, well, generate for me a random number between 1 and 10. Or generate for me a random number between 1,000 and 10,000. You want to be able to do that. Now, Python, like many other computer languages, has things called modules or libraries. And these are external pieces of code that other people have already written for us that we can take advantage of. So we don't have to write everything ourselves from scratch. There are these modules or libraries that other people have already done that save us the work. And all we have to do is somehow bring them into our program. Now, different computer languages, of course, have different syntax for how you do that. In Python, we call it importing modules into our program. And there's a module that's really useful called random that does what it says. It generates some random numbers and it does some random things. So whenever you have a program in which you want to use this module, you need to do some random number stuff. At the very top of your program, you have to import the module. So the way that you do that is you type the statement import, and notice it turns it blue. The editor turns it blue, so it knows it's a special keyword. And the name of the module is random. So I just put import random at the top of every program where I want to use some random number generation, and that will do it for me. Okay, so let's just do one real basic thing. Now, the random module actually does a whole lot of interesting things, but let's start with a real basic one. So say I want to generate a random number, say from 1 to 10, and I want to be able to have it pick for me a random number. So the way that I do that, now I'm going to let me store that in a variable called r for random. The way I do that is, the syntax is, I do it like this, random.choice. Okay, so random.choice. Now, choice is a function, so it takes parameters, so I have to put some parentheses because I have to give it some additional information. In particular, I have to tell it what's the range of numbers that I want it to pick from. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the range function, the same range function that we use when we have for loops. And in the same way, we can tweak the range function in for loops to make it count up how we want. We can kind of do the same thing when we want to generate random numbers. So if I were, say, just to put something like this, range 10, just one parameter for range, what that would do is it would generate random numbers between 0 and 9. Okay, just like if you had a for loop where you have it counting from range 10, it would actually count from 0 to 9. It would count from 0 up until the number that's 1 less than what you give it for the range. And it would still do it 10 times, so you would have still 10 numbers to choose from, but it would choose from 0 through 9 instead of 1 through 10 like how you want it. Okay, so let's actually just kind of watch this. So if I print it out, let me just print R, and let's run it a few times. So I run it, first one is 9, second one is 9, second one is 6, 5, 0. Okay, see the 0 there, so it did generate a 0. Next one is 8, 1, 4, and so on. So you can keep having it generate random numbers. Okay, now if you do this for a while, you'll notice that it never generates a 10. It'll generate 0, it'll generate 1, all the way up through 9. All of those numbers will eventually show up, but you're never going to see a 10. It'll choose from 10 different numbers, but the range of numbers it'll choose from is 0 through 9. Okay, so if I wanted to choose from 1 through 10, if you remember when we had this range function, when we talked about it in the context of loops, I have to give it a little bit more information. Okay, so I'm going to give it 2 parameters, 1, 11. Okay, so the first number is where it starts choosing from. So I'm going to explicitly tell it I want you to start choosing from 1 instead of 0, starting at 1 instead of starting at 0. And then the second number is 1 more than the last number I want it to choose from. So if I wanted to choose from 1 through 10, the second parameter I have to give it is actually 11 because it'll stop 1 before this second parameter. Okay, so range 1 comma 10, 1 comma 11, excuse me, will generate a random number in the range 1 through 10. So if we run it a few times, so let me run it. So there's a 10, okay, kind of interesting. It came up the first time. So there, it generated a 10. And if we keep running it, there's another 10, there's a 1, there's a 10, 1, 6, 2, 3, 2. So you see those random numbers coming up. Okay, now you could also put a third parameter in here. Okay, and that third parameter, if you remember from loops, told us how much to count by. Okay, so if I put, say, for example, 2, it'd start at 1. It would only pick numbers that are 2 away from 1 or multiple of 2 away from 1. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and it won't go beyond 10. Okay, so if I run this, you'll see there's a 1, there's a 9, there's a 1, 1, 9, 5, 3, 1, 1, 9, 5, 7. So you see it's all odd numbers. So if I start at 1 and count up by 2s, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc., I'm only going to hit the odd numbers. So something like this, 1, comma 11, comma 2, would generate random numbers starting at 1, going up by 2, and stopping 1 less than 11, which is 10. Okay, so it actually hit 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That'll be the set of numbers it chooses from. Okay, so the random module is actually really, really useful. We're going to use it a lot in our work, not only for things like games, but also for, in general, there's a lot of instances where you want to generate random numbers. Okay, so that's how you do it.